I personally believe in awareness should lead to some action. Awareness cannot work in isolation unless you're using that awareness to meditate or to open your heart. You are in your own zone, but you want to connect with people, try to bring change in their life. I think it has to be immediate action because awareness is all about in the present moment, and it goes away when we don't take any action.
Welcome to What's Possible, where leadership thrives. I'm Ilene Schaffer, and I'm glad you're here. Behind every powerhouse communicator and relationship builder is a strategic thinker who leads with curiosity. Because of that, we believe that your journey to becoming the best leader starts with you. What do you envision when you hear these terms? Mindfulness, awareness, intention setting. Does your mind immediately jump to yoga and meditation? For SVC coach Sandeep Kulshrestha, mindfulness, awareness, and intention actually belong and are essential at work. With over 2 decades of experience in HR and coaching, Sandeep stands as a thought leader in facilitating transformative change. He attributes much of his success to his regular practice of mindfulness and daily gratitude. Given the research on the power of mindfulness, I am not surprised. I'm grateful to have Sandeep join us to explore what happens when we develop a personal relationship with intention and how it can make you a more effective leader. I'm Ilene Schaffer. Let's find out what's possible. Welcome, Dr. Sandeep Kulshrestha. I am so happy to have you on What's Possible.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. And I love having you, obviously, as a coach on our team and just getting to know you. As I said right before the show, there is something just so beautiful about your energy and being in your presence. It always has a calming effect on me. So thank you.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you. Before we fully get rolling in our topic of mindfulness and awareness, I would love our audience to learn a bit about you and your background and how you even got started in this space.
So I've been in the human resource function for a long time, and where I got a snapshot of how to work with people, how to, do things which can help them grow in their careers. So I've worked with some wonderful organizations like the Holiday Inn Hotels, and I also been with the nonprofit sector. And so I was in the human resource function all through, and I stumbled upon mindfulness around a decade back when I picked up a book by John Kabat-Zinn, and that in fact changed my life, and so that was my own learning of mindfulness from the expert, because his MBSR program was very, very successful in hospitals in the US and across the world. And so basically my background in human resources made me a little more comfortable with this topic of mindfulness because when we worked with people, it was all about understanding them, looking at what we can do in the present moment to help them across. So that's how mindfulness came into my life as a philosophy more than the practice.
Tell me, I'm so curious. You pick up one book and that shifts everything. What about the book really resonated and shifted something in you?
The most important part of the book was about awareness of the present moment, and which I never thought in that direction at all. It was so simple, yet it was like not in my hands. But when I saw that, I can just bring my awareness to the present moment, appreciate, savor, and that changed my mindset altogether. It's because that was something which was it was just possible by just one sentence, just be aware of your breath. And that changed a lot of things in me because I started realizing, okay, there's a value in what we do now, here and now, and, we live in that moment. So yeah, that changed my perspective a lot.
And I know this is going to sound like such an elementary question, but when you say awareness, what exactly are you talking about?
I'd say what awareness is not first, because, awareness is not self-reflection. Because self-reflection is about, understanding who you are, understanding your pitfalls, your strengths, your weaknesses. And that goes into a spiral of negativity because we think, oh, I'm not good enough. That's the product of self-reflection. With all due respect to self-reflection, it's a good tool. Never, from what all I'm speaking about. But awareness is more about, awareness of self from a very self-compassionate kind of, approach. That, you are there in this world, you're breathing, you are a live human being, and then you can bring change in people's lives. So that is awareness for me, in nutshell. And it's not self-reflection; it's just a subtle feeling of that. You're there, and the world is around there, and then what you can do to make things better for you and for others.
I really like that distinction that it's not self-reflection, because that does take you to a totally different place than the awareness in the moment and that sense of presence.
Now, I personally believe in that because when we talk about awareness, generally people misunderstand it as self-reflection. Generally, most of the time, because but that also is a different kind of awareness. Perhaps that's useful for a business setting where you want to now launch new products and you see where you're not doing well. But again, awareness is more about a subtle belongingness to the present moment. That and a state of mind where you can change things around you. You can change relationships. You can work on to be a better human being. So I think for me, awareness is all about that. And I also think it's like. I was reading a book. I'll also talk about it later. By Daniel Siegel. That book is called Aware, and where he talks about having a kind intention, which comes from self, compassion, and that is more about awareness in the present moment. So I generally believe awareness is all about that.
Gosh, I don't know many people who couldn't use a little more self-compassion in the moment. I'm curious what you do to practice this in just your day-to-day. How do you practice awareness?
One is I start my day with the loving kindness meditation or metta, which is a Buddhist practice, which is about wishing yourself and others well. And so when you start wishing other people well, I'll give you an example. In this practice, you have to wish people whom you don't like, good things in life. And when I started doing that, I became aware, oh, those people are not that bad as I was thinking about them. I started looking at their qualities in a much more better way. And I thought, gosh, I really want to send them wishes, not because they like them, but I like certain qualities in them that came through that awareness. That they're humans, I'm a human being, and that awareness was phenomenal. And I was early wishing them well because I didn't like them. I started wishing them well because I started loving them more. Because of that awareness that, because of this practice, it's a simple practice. It takes around 2-3 minutes in the morning time, and, you wish people well. And that changed a lot of things in me in terms of being aware that people around me also have those good traits, which I think are also in me and other people around them as well. And that made me change my thinking completely that, I'm not wishing people whom I don't like well. I'm wishing people whom I like and I love, and they're part of my life. I can't ignore the fact that they're part of my life. That's why I'm wishing them in the first place.
Wow. And I love hearing the one thing I think about our listeners, most people probably feel pressed for time. They're pulled between running a company, taking care of people within the organization if they're in that HR space. They are also, perhaps have families that they're taking care of. They have hobbies, interests. At the end of the day, we don't have a lot of extra time and we need to create space. And what I'm hearing you say is a 2-minute practice for you has changed your life and changed your relationships.
Absolutely. It did. Yeah, the power of 2 minutes. So.
Yeah. And to just shift.
Yes, that shift. Yeah. It starts with 2 minutes and then it becomes like an autopilot. You don't need to even sit at one place and do it. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in the train. You can do it in the flight. You can do it just about anywhere you want.
And what I hear you saying in that, and I'm so glad you brought up the loving kindness. I have done that in the past and really loved it. And I've gotten away from doing it. And so I am restarting that. I was going to say tomorrow morning, but I can start today. So I'm going to start that again today because it is such a beautiful practice and it's not complicated. Oftentimes we think about, okay, you're only meditating if you sit down for 2 hours or an hour, what have you, and really dive in. But there's this practice that can have a profound effect. And when I hear you talking about it, and when I think about that practice, it's not about shifting even any of the thoughts that you might have that weren't as favorable about the person, but it's really placing your attention on starting to see the beauty. So letting go of some of the other.
Yeah, I really like the way you said that, I start appreciating the beauty in a person. Because that awareness is profound. Although it comes from a very small, quick practice of 2-3 minutes. But again, when we practice with more awareness, when we are more open to, explore and, experience that, looking at the person from a very different, beautiful perspective. And then we change, the mind shift happens immediately. And with a regular practice, it becomes a habit, and then we can channelize a lot of things through that.
Looking at it, obviously, from your personal life, how have you brought that into the work that you do with leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a very good question. And I recently did a workshop with women leaders in a company, and so I had a meeting with them before the official training could start. I was trying to understand where they come from, trying to connect with them as human, and being aware of what qualities they have, and so then I immediately shifted the entire program, because I thought these people are different than what I expected them to be, and because we can't tailor make program for just about everybody the same way. So my idea is to approach each and every client, each and every project in a very different way, to be aware about what is the expectations, what are the people who are behind that work, what kind of work they're doing, what is the human behind that, that exterior. And that awareness changes a lot of things, because then we relate to them well. And then the program, so the program we recently did was very, very successful, because we brought that awareness into the practice about who people we are working with, what are their qualities, and how can we enhance that working relationship within them, so to create a better impact.
So you did this in a group setting then?
Yes, we did in a group setting. Even in personal setting, but when I work with leaders as a coach, so I bring that point of awareness from very, very compassionate listening to, being aware of what words are spoken. I believe in the power of words, and, then trying to relate with what the person is all about, and working with a self-compassion within me to understand the other side of the other. And that helps in building a good rapport and relationship.
And that's from you as a coach. Are there tools or things that you share with your client, or in this case, the women from the group, where they can take it and apply it on their own?
So we start with a very basic mindfulness exercise, like being aware of the moment, and and we with some bit of breathing. And I also do with my coaching clients as well. I ask them, can we start with a stretch or a breathing exercise? And because they're in office, they say, okay, breathing will be better. And then sometimes I ask them to, just focus on one wonderful, friend they have at work, with whom they connect very well. Just think about their face, and, imagine the conversation you have with them. And then you come back in the present moment and talk to me about it. What do you think about them? And so that is more about awareness of self and others. So sometimes we start the conversations around that, and that people feel very, very happy about it. I remember one client of mine who was traveling to New Zealand, and he was from India. And then he called me from New Zealand and said, I was at the airport and I was looking at people. I was looking at different dresses people are wearing, and I was just imagining what kind of conversation they'll be having with their family. And so that awareness, brought him smiles. And he said, okay, we were talking about it just last week when I spoke to you. So yeah, people, when they bring small practices in their life, they can achieve a lot of wonderful results.
I'm curious if you have any stories in terms of how that awareness has built relationships for people.
In my case, of course, I give an example. I build relationships through awareness a lot of time. One was about loving kindness meditation, but the other is I make it a point to connect with people if I'm lost connection with them. I started writing letters and notes to people whom I not been connected since a long while. And that awareness that, I'm missing that person, and I should do something to, talk to that person and say, hey, how are you doing? It's been a while that we connected, why don't we meet up? From that simple step, we can always reach out. Because I believe in the concept of open awareness, as I was talking about Daniel Segal in his book Aware. He talks about open awareness in a sense that, we are open to possibilities, we are open to explore things based on our awareness. And so I make it a point to send notes to people, to my friends, whether it's a small message or a social media, or you're saying, hey, can we talk for 2 minutes? Because I was thinking about you in the morning. So I start the process by having a little bit of self-compassion for me that, okay, I'm about to come out of my comfort zone and I'm connected to somebody who I could not connect all these years. And I avoid the judgments of what will happen. Should I do it? I just do it, because we
Yeah.
always get into the self-judgment mode. Okay, what will happen if the person does not respond? So I do little bit with open awareness, and I do it not in pursuit of a result, but in the process of being aware in the moment that I have to connect with this person. And that's a tremendous shift, I guess.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is, all of us throughout the course of the day, somebody might pop into our mind and then we just let it go. We're not focused on it. What I hear you saying is when that happens, I actually act on it and I connect with the person. And I have to say, right after my mom passed, you wrote me the most beautiful poem. And it was just it just filled my soul. And I would imagine now having this conversation when you learned about her passing probably had an awareness of me and my family, and then in that moment sat down and wrote something versus just like, oh, I hope Eileen's doing okay, and then moved on to the next thing. You actually listened to the awareness and then did something that was so incredibly beautiful, and made an impact on me. And of course I shared it with my family. So thank you again. But that's a great example. It just came to me as you were talking.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks for being, mindful of that, and thanks for your kindness as well, because to recall that moment. And I'll share one more small thing. Today my wife was baking a cake, and I was in a client meeting. I told my client I'll just be back in 2 minutes. I went to the kitchen and I just, savored the aroma. I told my wife, oh, let's sit down here and savor the aroma. This is so wonderful. And then I came back to
Mm.
my meeting with the client, and so it was, and I told my client, that, my wife had baked a wonderful cake today. So I'm sorry I took liberties with you for 2 minutes. So yeah. So I think it was just, I, I personally believe in awareness should lead to some action. Awareness cannot work in isolation unless you're using that awareness to meditate or, to open your heart. You are in your own zone, but you want to connect with people, try to bring change in their life. I think it has to be immediate action, because awareness is all about in the present moment, and it goes away when we don't take any action.
Well, and I'm hearing from you, it's all our senses. So paying attention to what we see, hear, smell, taste, all of that, having awareness in that moment, and then responding to that awareness when appropriate.
Absolutely. Like, for even a small thing, there's something called Positive Intelligence is a book by Shahzad, which is a very popular, book. In that book, he talks about being aware of the sounds. When you're sitting at one place at your home, listen to the farthest sound you can hear. And one day I was hearing the farthest sound of the rains coming from a distance. And then I thought, oh, wow, must be a good weather today. And so it can create a lot of things in your life. You can be at your peace, and you hear sounds, you smell things. We explore our five senses to the fullest, and then we can do wonderful things in our life.
I love that. If we explore our senses to the fullest, we can do wonderful things. Beautiful. So, I am curious for our listeners. I always like to make this really practical and something they can integrate into their day to day life. You've already said the loving kindness meditation, which people who are not familiar with it can find that online easily. So, that's one thing that's 2 minutes. People can really adapt starting today. What else might people be able to do to leverage this topic? I'm even thinking if you can answer it twofold, one as an individual, but also maybe what they can bring back to their team.
Yeah. So the first thing is, I think everybody has the best time of the day for where they can be at their best, in their thinking, and so people can find out the best time for themselves, and look at, what is something which I am most aware of today at this moment. What is something about the team which I'm aware of now? I mean, and what can I do to go back to them and say, hey, this is what we can do. So we can find the sweet spot in the day where our thoughts are at our best and think what we are aware of now. Just maybe take some deep breaths, close your eyes for a moment and say, okay, this is my team and this is what we're working on now. What can we do more? What can I give from my side as a tool to them to make them do things in a better way? What do I make them to be happier? And so I think that bit of it's a simple thing, just being there and focus on the present moment and say what I'm savoring right now in my team, and how is it going to influence, how it is going to affect the outcome. So let me do something more about it. So I think just finding a space for yourself, in a busy schedule. I sometimes use the term, creating a well-being calendar. Like we have a calendar every week, so we put some spots there. Okay, this is the time for my, my time, me time to just think and being aware what I can do for myself and for the others. So I think that's one thing which can be done very, very easily.
I love that. It makes me think of Senya Myman, who obviously is a friend of yours and the owner founder of our company, Silicon Valley Change. And Senya is big on bravery, and she will put on her calendar a place to be brave in the moment, so it will pop up as a reminder. What are you going to do to be brave? And I hear this from you in terms of, we can put a block on our calendar, but a time that we really allow for that awareness.
Absolutely. I also relate bravery to one thing which I, used to practice in the company I used to work for when I was a full-time HR person. One day I saw one of my team members doing something fantastic, and I went to her immediately and said, let's grab a cup of coffee. I want to know what you're doing. And I want to know what inspired you to do these great things. Tell me more about it. And I still remember that. And that conversation was wonderful. I said, I'll not talk about work. You tell me what you want to do, what are your aspirations. I just loved the way you did it. So I think one can instantly surprise a team by talking to them, listening to their stories, and, making them feel empowered. I think that's very, very interesting things to do in terms of being aware of what is happening.
Gosh, so many good tips that are practical. And again, I'm going to say easy. I guess everything can be easy or hard depending on which way you look at it. But I feel like you've given us some things that we can integrate into an already full day to give us a sense of pause and to be able to catch our breath, exhale, and be present in that moment. It makes me think of I'm in the Penn program for the Masters in Applied Positive Psychology, and we had Dr. Baim come talk to us, and he's from the med school, and they have a mindfulness program over there, and he has his own practice, but then he also trains doctors, and he talks to them about the power of kind of that pause in between patients. He said, I realize that patients are going back to back, and with insurance, you have this limited time, but it literally takes seconds to pause before walking in to the patient's room to get present and then be really focused on them. And people feel it. And as leaders, we can do that more and show that we are present, show that we are connecting with where they are in this moment and that our brain is not in 20 other places at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's the power of awareness and taking a pause, that, being grounded and then come back to your work again. I think that's so beautiful to hear it, in healthcare people are doing that. That's such a wonderful example.
Quick personal thing where I have on my calendar right now, my dad passed in July, and I have every week I would go see him. I would see him more than once a week, depending on different things, but we had our date was always on Friday, and I left it on my calendar. So it's still on my calendar, even though he's passed, because it just allows me to pause when it comes up, think about whether I think about him, whether I take in the moment. And my dad was he meditated regularly. He really practiced presence and awareness in such a beautiful way. And having that on my calendar is just the best reminder of him, his practice, and for me to catch a breath and be present in the moment.
Oh, how interesting, because yesterday I did something similar because my father had passed in 2019. And so every year during this period in India, so we go to a temple and offer the food which my father used to love to the local priest in the temple, and just to recall his. So I was trying to understand what all did he like, and I was reflecting. I was being aware of what his food choices were, and I kind of arranged all of that and then offered it to the temple. And so that And then I sat there for a while and just thought of remembering him. And that was such a beautiful experience because you start recalling, oh, what did he like? And I think he liked that particular dessert. And, then you start doing things. It's so beautiful to, recall and then serve to somebody else, the similar food. And so we think in India that, when we offer to the priest, it's like, the soul of my father would be joyful. So that's the logic here in India.
That is so lovely. Oh, and it allows you to savor your dad.
Yeah, it allowed me to savor my dad because there's a place there for you to sit and, just pause. And I spent half an hour remembering him, remembering my young days when I was maybe a kid, and how he used to pamper all of us. So that was a good moment to remember that.
Oh, thank you for sharing. That's beautiful. All right. Well, I think our guests have plenty of things that they can plug and play. Let's go ahead and jump into a few just kind of fun questions. I know you already said that you do the loving kindness every morning to set your day right. Anything else you want to add that's a easy habit that you do, but is really important to your well-being?
Yeah, I do something called setting up the intention, which is an exercise on a daily after doing Ganesh meditation. I set my intention, which can be anything. The intention can be in your mind, like saying that today I'll try to help my team to do this work in different way. Today I'll be more open to ideas. I'll be open to listen more. I'll take time for myself on my well-being calendar. Just take a pause. So it can be any intention for that matter. And so I set up intention every day morning. This is also a very simple exercise. Just take a deep breath. Imagine what you want to bring to the day, and then certainly remember that by the evening, whether you could accomplish that. So I think intention setting is also a very interesting exercise in terms of because intention is all about awareness that this is what I want to do, and how do we do it? So the how comes automatically when the intention is already there, because it's in a subconscious mind that intention is placed already, so we can do that as well as a practice.
Excellent. So, intention and loving kindness, two things for you every day. Of course, I'm going to ask you your favorite book recently. You've already given several great books. John Kabat-Zinn, you gave Daniel Siegel, and Shazad on positive intelligence. Do you have another one that you want to add to the list of books?
Oh yeah, so I was just yesterday reading this book called The Comfort Book by Matthew Haig. I especially liked one thing in that book. He said when you hit rock bottom, you still with the rocks, so which means that's your solid foundation.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So I just loved it, because you're still having rocks around you. So that's your foundation. Why don't you build yourself up again? And so that's a comfort book. It has got a lot of simple tools for people to look at. I personally love this rock bottom, philosophy that makes you feel that, you're still grounded. You can still do something about it.
That is so beautiful. Oh, wow. I feel like right when I finish this podcast, I can't tell you how many people I'll be sending that to. That's because there's a lot of people, I think, that are struggling right now who feel like they have hit rock bottom. And so I like that mindset. It doesn't negate the feelings. It doesn't say it's easy or anything like that. At the same time, you still have a foundation under you. And so now what?
Absolutely. It's a profound book. It's a very simple book. And I like you were saying earlier, I think simple things are much more better than any jargon which we hear from people all the time. So there are a lot of simple things out there.
What would you hope that our leaders take away as their big takeaway for today?
Well, I think the leaders should look at what awareness they're bringing to their teams, what awareness they're bringing to the organizations, and how are they looking at the beautiful things in people, and how are they able to channelize that? How are they able to take action immediately when there's awareness, and how they're bringing that coherence in the team back again? And so I think that can come with the power of awareness. Things can happen in a very simple way. They just need to bring some basic practices at work, like intention setting, having a time for people, having a time to pause and then come back. So I think that's very important.
When easy action. So we have talked about a lot of easy actions. So now I'm going to just ask for only one. So if they only do one thing that you talked about today, or even something you forgot to talk about, what is that one thing you would recommend?
Well, the one thing I recommend to leaders is be open to be aware, which means I think the time which they take off in between, they should spend the time in being aware of how they can be the source of channelizing, the goodness in people to the next level. And I think that's one basic thing to start off with when being aware about, or using all your five senses to understand what my people are doing, how I can make these things better for them, how I can be more open, how I can set the intention of doing great things at work, and how I can listen better than before. So I think few things are very, very simple to do.
And when a leader does that, what is possible? So this is kind of that gold ticket question. What's in it for them when they do that?
Oh, well, what is possible is how many teams and more happy people around. So that's definitely possible.
And who doesn't want more happy people around? And not to say that we can't have, of course, all the emotions at the same time. The leader can really help to facilitate an environment where people can flourish, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, the leaders can definitely facilitate that environment where people can flourish, people can, explore themselves, they can showcase all their colors in life around that. Yeah, definitely.
Sandeep, I know people can find you on the Silicon Valley Change website, svchange.com. If they want to find you in other locations, how would they best reach out to you?
Well, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. They can type my name and they'll find me there. That's the best way to connect with me.
Wonderful. And when people are on the SVC website, if you scroll past our coaching section, you'll get to see Sandeep's books. Can you share what books you have? And it sounds like you just published a new one as well.
Oh, yes. So I've written a book on positive psychology a few years back for a publisher in Denmark. That is called Positive Psychology, a handbook published by Book Boon Denmark. And I've recently published a book on poetry called The Warmth of a Ballad. And so that's recently been published in India. It's a poetry book of for romantic poetry lovers. And that's what I've written recently.
Wonderful. Sandeep, it has been an absolute pleasure. I feel grateful to have you on the Silicon Valley Change team. That's where I got to meet you, and I love the work that you're putting out into the world. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It was such a wonderful conversation. I just loved being here today.
This podcast is a catalyst for your leadership and well-being journey. To step deeper into exceptional leadership, visit svchange.com for personalized support that will take you to the next level. If you find this show meaningful, please hit that follow or subscribe button. It helps more people find what's possible organically. If you have questions about anything we've talked about, please drop me a line at podcast@svchange.com. I read every email I get, whether that's an episode idea, a guest recommendation, or just a simple note about how the show has impacted you. I'd love to hear from you. I'm Ilene Schaffer. Thanks for listening. What's Possible is produced by the team at Palm Tree Pod Co. The executive producer is Anthony Palmer. Garrett Wright is associate producer. Thanks to Emily Miles and Caitlin Krings for video and digital support. The content for this podcast is created by Ilene Schaffer and the team at Silicon Valley Change.